full agenda, so we'll get moving. Welcome everybody to our first joint meeting for RFSWG and our Iowa Food System Coalition. I am Jody Hagrick, and I'm on the steering committee for both RFSWG and Iowa Food System Coalition. So I will be leading some of the meeting, but very soon here, I'm going to turn it over to Andrea, who's going to be leading our panel. We have some great school representatives on today to share their experience with local food for school. So very happy to have them. So if you guys will continue to put name, organization in the chat as introductions, we will go ahead and get started with that panel. So Andrea, I'll turn it over to you.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Andrea Edelsizer, and I am with Healthy Harvest of North Iowa up in north central Iowa. And today I am going to facilitate the discussion about the farm to school procurement and the LFS program. And I was just verifying that we see at least 3 of our panelists on here. Caitlin, I saw Julie, Becky. Is Stephanie on here as well? Is that do we see? Maybe it's the next page. So we'll go ahead and hopefully as everyone's joining, everyone will be here. So to start off the panel, I will ask the panelists to do a quick introduction of themselves, tell us a little bit about what town they're from and what part of state that's in, just in case other folks don't know. A little bit about the school, such as how many students are at your school or in your division, what type of kitchen you have, whether it's a central kitchen or multiple kitchens at different buildings. And why don't we start with that and go from there? So I guess, Caitlin, why don't you start off?
Yes, sure thing. Caitlin Sharman, I'm the dietitian for the Waukee Community School District and coordinate our farm to school work. So Waukee Community School District encompasses 4 different communities. So we have Waukee proper, but then we also have parts of Clive, Urbandale, and West Des Moines in our school district, kind of the Dallas County parts of those areas. We have 13,500 students in our district, and we operate on a multiple kitchen model. So we have each kitchen is self-operational, receives their own orders, prepares their own food. And then we have a kitchen supervisor in each building. So that kind of impacts how we do our local purchasing work. I'll pass it off to Julie.
Hi, I'm Julie Udelhoffen, Clear Lake Community School District. We're North Central Iowa. We're a smaller district, 1,400 students. We have 3 kitchens, K-5, 6 through 8, 9 through 12.
Excellent. Becky? I thought I saw her.
Sorry about that. I am Becky Risden. I am the food service director here at Williamsburg Schools. There's 2 schools with 3 kitchens. We've got junior high kitchen, and then a high school kitchen, and then an elementary, which is PK through 6. We have about 1,300 students. I don't know what else you need to know.
Yeah, that's good for now. And then we'll have a few more questions after all the introductions. So, and okay. The last panelist is Stephanie. I don't know if Stephanie is on. I can't seem to see if she's on.
It doesn't look like it, Andrea.
I'm not seeing anything.
Okay, sounds good. We'll just carry on. I'm sorry if she does get on, just let us know. So let's talk a little bit about the LFS and the Local Food for Schools grant, and whether your school participated in that grant. Tell us a little bit about if you participated in both rounds of the grant or just one of them, and then a little bit about the products that you purchased through that program, and maybe, I guess, maybe the top 3 products that you were able to purchase through that program. We could go in the same order.
Okay, yes, I can start us off. So yes, we did participate in LFS. We participated in both rounds. In both rounds, we received the $4,000 in produce and $4,000 in protein. For context, we normally, in the last couple of years, have spent about $100,000 on local food over the course of the school year. So you can kind of see how that compares, like, with those grant dollars versus how much like we're currently purchasing locally. We bought a lot of different things with our LFS grant, but mainly with produce, lots of different types of produce, onions, frozen vegetables are really great in this over the winter months, apples, peppers, cherry tomatoes, watermelon, carrots, lots of different, a variety of things. We used pretty much all of our produce grant to purchase items for local food day, and then we use those dollars up. Our protein grants lasted us a little longer, so we don't do quite as many local protein items right now. Mainly yogurt, liquid eggs, cottage cheese, and cheese curds are what we've used our LFS funds for on the protein side. So those funds have lasted us a little bit longer than the produce we use up pretty quickly. I'll pass it off to Julie.
We did participate in both rounds, and actually the second round, we did the full 8,000 produce, 8,000 protein. We've spent all of those dollars. The top products, I mean, we do broccoli, cauliflower, lettuce, potatoes, apples. But I guess I'm going to say here that I don't feel like the big sellers are where the true value lies in the local foods. I think the true value lies in unfamiliar items that we can't get through the big box. I take a lot of joy in bringing unfamiliar items to the kids and introducing them. But yeah, I'll pass that off to Becky.
Yes, we participated in both rounds as well. And we also enjoyed so much bringing the unfamiliar to the kitchen, and the kids really enjoyed that. But we used onions, kohlrabi, lettuces, cucumber, zucchini, summer squash, sweet potatoes, baking potatoes, watermelon, kiwi berries, apples, cantaloupe. And then for the proteins, the yogurt, the cottage cheese, and ground beef. The kids really enjoyed the variety. And whoever's next.
Yeah.
I'd like to say
great.
I didn't take part in I didn't tell you about the protein. We did a lot of yogurt, but the other thing that we have really enjoyed is we bought the 5-pound blocks of cheese and grated those, because we have our Thursdays we do casseroles. And so we've used that cheese on our casseroles, and it is so lovely and fresh.
Excellent. Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about how the LFS funding has impacted your school food service. I know some of you said you did some purchasing prior to LFS, but tell us a little bit about how that funding has impacted the school's food service. And then, it sounds like most of you have used up the money now at this point. How are you continuing to, with that momentum of farm to school in your schools now that funding is maybe used up?
Yeah, so for us, we were purchasing local prior to LFS and established our Harvest of the Month program prior to LFS. So we've continued doing that programming. What we will probably do now that LFS is ending is we'll shift to using our federal funds, just like we would for any other food item that we're purchasing in a meal. I think really what LFS has helped to do is offset some of those costs. So not as much of our federal funds have to go to purchasing local. So it's been really helpful in that regard. We've also had supply chain funds, which that has offset some of our local purchasing costs. So that's been really beneficial and just gives us those opportunities to feature local products. So yeah, I'll pass it to Julie.
So the impact, I guess I feel the impact of LFS is we've been able to bring in fresh and longer lasting fruits and vegetables. It really has opened the door for us to show the kids where their food comes from. We've been able to offer a number of items that we normally wouldn't be able to. And I really believe that the Farm to School opens doors and eyes to opportunities that we really didn't see were there before. I like to use the term that local food is a gateway drug for the schools because, like I said, it just shows us the opportunities maybe that we weren't aware of before. And Becky, if you want to take it from here.
I would have to agree with you 100%. It has it's expanded all the different things that we could get that we weren't able to purchase before. The freshness of the lettuce was phenomenal. That was really great. We were just so impressed with the variety, and our kids loved radish. Who knew? And kohlrabi, and they just hadn't had that before. So that was really awesome. I kind of forgot the main question.
But no, you're doing awesome. How is that, how has the LFS impacted the school? So you did answer that.
Okay.
And what are you thinking about, like, now that your funds have been used up, how are you going to continue sourcing local, or what are your plans for?
Before the grant funds, we were using our school money for like potatoes, apples, things that we could get. But it has given us some ideas of maybe trying to procure some more items. Watermelon being one of them, because that is one of their favorites. That is something that we think we can do. So I guess that's how it's changed.
Yeah. And what, I guess the next question would be, obviously if you have some funds within your existing budget to continue local foods, that's great. But what will happen if there is no continued LFS funding into the future? I know there are some initiatives that we're looking at statewide, and there's some question of whether that funding will continue federally. But if it doesn't, what will happen to kind of the momentum or the work that you guys have been doing in the schools?
Without the funding, I feel like we'd have to cut way back on the items. And that it just simply isn't in the budget to be able to purchase those things at the cost they are now. It just wouldn't be in the budget. We'd love to. We would love to continue that. So
Yes. And how about Caitlin and Julie? How do you respond to that?
Yeah, I think for us, we would probably be continuing Harvest of the Month just because that is well established now in our district. And an important part of kind of that connection between cafeteria and classrooms and getting kids talking about where food comes from. But I could see where it would make it more challenging for us to expand local purchasing further. So I think that's something that definitely would they're play into more consideration, like looking at putting things on our cycle menu where they're served every 3 weeks. Cost is going to become a lot more important for us to be looking at, and maybe we can justify a teeny bit of extra cost, but we can't spend like almost double the amount of like on a case of apples. So definitely, yeah, would be more cost consideration.
I agree. You definitely have to weigh the cost benefit. I'll certainly purchase the things that are not available through the distributor because I just love doing that. But I want to take this opportunity to talk about the food hubs. We've loved this program. We loved having the Iowa Food Hub act as a good buying organization because it made the job manageable. So I know if we have to go out and in fact Caitlin and I just sat through a spec writing class yesterday. If we have to write all of our own specs, find the farmers, collect the quotes, do the calculations, it just, again, that goes into that cost benefit and is it worth it? And the other thing that I'd like to say is I feel very strongly that through LFS, the food hubs have worked so hard and taken care of the schools. And I can't imagine the pains that they've gone through to supply us and take care of us. And they've done it. And they've done a fabulous job of it. And to pull the funding from them after all the work they've done, it just makes me a little bit sick to my stomach to see that happen. I think it's totally unfair. But sorry, I had to hop on my soapbox for a moment. Thank you.
Yes, we all agree. I think that food hubs have done a phenomenal job with these grant monies. Unfortunately, we did know going into this that there was a timeline on the funding. There is obviously hope that we'll be able to come up with some options to keep this going, but it's yet to be determined. I guess I also see that we're getting a few questions into the chat. I know Caitlin, there is a question for you, specifically to speak a little more about how you're using your supply chain funds. It sounds like many schools are using those funds primarily for milk purchases, but can you talk a little more about how you are using them?
Yeah, so we use them. We did use it for milk purchases, but we've also been using it for Country View yogurt and the frozen yogurt that we get from them. And that is, as I learned yesterday in our spec writing workshop, very helpful because yogurt is not a minimally processed food under like normal code USDA regulation. It is considered minimally processed for supply chain assistance and for LFS. So I'm really glad we were doing that because we purchase a lot of yogurt. So just going forward, that will definitely play into like decisions that we make about purchasing and how much we're purchasing. But using supply chain dollars has kind of helped us to purchase that local product that we're using and selling a lot of, versus, just using it for milk. So.
Yeah, great. I think that's a great idea, and other schools maybe can, look into that as well. I guess there's also some question for Caitlin about, it says you've been purchasing local for a long time, and have you seen the ease of distribution increase as the state distribution networks have become more regular during this time of LFS and LFPA?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's definitely like just that interconnectivity between hubs has increased. And so we don't just have to go to Farm Table, we can go to the Iowa Food Hub and get product from them. And so we're seeing that benefit of being able to purchase things that one food hub might not have access to through another food hub. So yeah, it definitely has gotten easier as the years have gone on.
Yeah, and the food hubs have been working together a lot. So sometimes they are like bringing stuff from other parts of the state, and you might still receive it through Farm Table, but it's actually coming from Northeast Iowa, or they're coordinating a lot better. So yeah, I know Julie also kind of spoke to that a little bit. Do you have anything else to add about ease of distribution or the variety of products you've been able to get during this program?
Yeah, again, the food hubs, like I said, they've been phenomenal. And I know they work very hard to get us what we need.
Mm-hmm. Becky, anything to add on this topic?
Unfortunately, on some of ours, we felt like we could only get like one delivery a month, which was hard when you're working with fresh produce. And maybe because we're a smaller district and we're a little further away, they would make one trip this direction. So we'd have to wait for that day and try to plan around that. So that was kind of hard. Maybe that would get better as more schools participated and the food hub gets larger. That was our hope anyway.
Yeah. I
And,
think, right, I think you're right on with that, that there's been a lot of improvement, but there's still, you know, a ways to go with that. And that LFS and LFPA have really allowed the hubs to kind of practice and improve as the time's gone on. So I think that is
yes,
a good momentum.
they do bend over backwards to try to make it all work, and I think they're doing the best they can, but yeah, it would be great if we had a little more regular schedule.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely. There is another question about state meat, about meat, about processing meat, and the direct to consumer meat has processing has improved, but what are some barriers to schools purchasing meat that you guys have seen?
Yeah, I think for us, I didn't say this in the beginning, but we have 17 buildings this year. We'll have 18 next year. And obviously multiple staff at all of those buildings. I think we're a little over 100 staff right now. And we have not been using raw meat products at least for the last 7 years since I've been here, and I think for some time before that. And so to jump back into using raw meat products is a big step, a big staff training step. And so that's where we've had some challenge as far as purchasing local meat and trying to move forward. In that regard, I wouldn't say it's impossible or it could never happen. For us, the way we really have to do it is start small. So like we might start and pilot something at our high school buildings where we just have 2 sets of staff to work with and then build out slowly from there to other grade levels.
I agree. It's the same for us. We haven't handled raw meat. For me, I feel like there's a safety issue that we don't have to bring in the kitchen. So I'm hesitant to do that. And I'll be honest too, that cooking raw meat causes more mess, and more mess means more cleanup for the staff. And so it's more time. And again, staff is a huge cost in the school.
We do use ground beef on a regular basis, and the ground beef that we were getting from the food hub was phenomenal. It was really good meat. But I can see what you guys are saying too. If you're a bigger district, it would be a bigger deal.
Yes, definitely. I think that varies a lot between schools and how many buildings and staff preparedness for that. So, let's see. There is a question about raw meat. If you were interested in using it, what would be the first raw meat that you would be interested in using? Is it ground beef or something else that you guys would be interested in trying if you did kind of take the plunge into that arena?
Yeah, I would say for us, like probably ground beef is something we'd lean more towards. I feel like if you're gonna look at what's the hardest to mess up, I feel like ground beef is the hardest to like get wrong. Like usually people will cook it thoroughly enough, and yeah, I think we would just have probably the best luck starting there and starting simple with like one menu item that's local beef. Yeah.
I agree with Caitlin, the ground beef, but also chicken breast, that would not be an overly messy, overly hard product.
Yes. So I do see there are some comments just in general. I'll just bring up for everybody in case you're not following the chat. You know, there are barriers related to the meat in schools related to, first of all, the LFS did not allow any pre-cooked products. So that was kind of a barrier to this grant that you know, wasn't able to allow some of those items. So, and then the way that you package meat in order to sell direct to consumer is different than what a food service would need for that, same product. So a lot of times when we went into this grant, the smaller producers generally package in small, 1 pound packages, which doesn't make a lot of sense if the school is doing, many, many pounds of meat to open each individual package. So there has been some learning curve related to that and some packaging changes that were needed on the producer end in order to facilitate, the schools being able to use that. So I think all of that to be said, this, grant project has allowed for us to learn all of those little facts and to make it easier for producers to be able to be ready to sell to schools when the schools are ready to purchase in those types of quantities. So so there's quite a few more comments about meat packaging, I think, in the chat here. I don't know, does anybody else in the crowd here have any specific questions for our food service directors? There's a lot of good points from Teresa about packaging. I don't know, Teresa, did you want to say anything more on the meat? I know you're kind of the expert in the farm to school meat procurement. Did you want to say anything more specific about that? Oh, she doesn't have a voice. So if you want more information, there is a lot coming in on the chat.
I was just gonna add, it looks like Jody asked a question about like what advice would we have for schools wanting to purchase local. And I'll
Good.
just share like our local purchasing started with purchasing local apples for our secondary buildings on local food day. And that was all the local purchasing we did. So I think just starting with that, like one item that's simple, helps you like get more comfortable with that process of local purchasing because it's a little bit different than purchasing from your regular distributor. And then slowly building from there. We did farm to school work for probably, I think it was like a year before we really jumped into purchasing local and started doing more of like a regular harvest of the month program. So, yeah, I think just picking those like easy button items like apples and cherry tomatoes and yogurt help, like if you're going to like serve it like district wide and you want every kid to have that opportunity to have it. The easy button items are great. And then, yeah, bringing in some of the unfamiliar things like Julie and Becky mentioned, you can start those as like a taste test, just like a small opportunity where you don't have to bring in a bunch of it. You don't have to worry about like making a huge batch of it. Just kind of helps build momentum.
Yeah, Becky or Julie, anybody else have advice about where to start, or it's kind of similar to what Caitlin said? Yeah.
Yeah, I think Caitlin said it all.
Yeah. Great. There's one more question about whether you guys all have salad bars in your schools.
We do
We-
have a salad
yeah.
bar in the high school and the middle. We are in the process of setting it up in the middle school and not, we wouldn't call it a salad bar. What we have is salad offerings every day on the line. I'd love to be able to do that in the elementary, but our serving line is so small. So I don't really have that opportunity.
And we have always had a small salad bar, but we are enlarging that to offer more variety. And we'll just do smaller amounts with just more variety. It's what we hope to do. And the high schools always had that option. Maybe not quite as large as we would like it to be, but this has shown us the need for that, for the growing that salad bar.
Yeah, that the students are interested in those products and
Very much so.
Yeah.
We also have salad options at our high school and middle school. We used to offer a salad option at our elementaries. But most buildings only did like 1 or 2 in a day. And so with COVID, with having to slim down our menu options, unfortunately, that was the first thing to go. But we do still serve local produce, just more as an accompaniment to like our other, like our hot option. And we have a Kidsable, which is kind of like a, I don't know, it's yogurt and cheese and things like that, with fruits and vegetables. So.
Nice. What about school gardens? There's a question about whether you guys use any food or vegetables from school garden on site.
We,
So- go
yeah.
ahead, Becky.
Okay, we have two gardens here at the elementary and then one at the high school that we grow most of our grape tomatoes, cucumbers, peppers, some onions. That's been very successful for the kids. They like that very much.
Yeah, and we have school gardens at 6 of our buildings right now, and then some hydroponics as well. Most of those don't grow for the majority of the school year, so they grow a lot during the summer months. So we use our produce for it comes back to our picnic and play program for most of it. And then we package it into like sample sizes and share that out with families. Even if we do get like a crop of lettuce off of one of our tower gardens, it's because of the volume we do, it's not usually enough for everybody in the building to have some, but we've done kind of smaller events where like 5th grade gets to have it for lunch on a particular day, and then we might share it with 4th grade lunch the next time we have a crop. So kind of rotating it so like everybody gets some maybe at some point, but yeah, it's the quantity is usually not enough to be enough production. We call all of our gardens learning gardens because they're not really for producing enough to feed everybody. So yeah.
And we don't have gardens per se. We have an ag class. They have a greenhouse and a tower that they do some lettuce for us, and we serve that only in the high school.
Yes. There's another question about what do you guys think about a cost share type program where local foods would be, partially covered or cost shared in order to make them a little more comparable to the distributor price? Like, how would that benefit the schools?
That would be great.
I think that's a really unique way to kind of like approach the cost aspect, because I think most food service operations are going to tell you that cost is a big factor when it comes to local foods. So I think that definitely would factor into our decisions, especially after the spec writing workshop we went to yesterday.
Yes.
And talking about how to evaluate your bid and how you can give some preference to local producers by like you can give a penny for every point that you give for being local. So it might be like if you give them 10 points, you get to take 10 cents off each case price. And that's really just to evaluate. You don't actually get that 10 cents off, but it helps the local producers kind of have an edge in the bid process, or the purchase process. So yeah, I think if the cost share option was there and you're paying less upfront for a case and you get to give them that advantage and figuring out who gets awarded the bid, that's even better. So
Absolutely. It would level the playing field and really at the end of the day, it's the cost.
Mm-hmm. But I think I heard you say earlier on in the conversation that you also found the freshness was a big factor in the local food. So I assume you're also finding that the foods are lasting longer and you have less
Yes.
that you have to throw away. So if you think about that as a way of evaluating costs, then also that's a savings of, less waste and more food that actually gets to the students.
Yes.
Also, I would hope, I don't know how, it's probably very difficult to measure, but with the, local food being fresh and tasty and interesting to the students, I'm hoping they're also eating more of it, which is also, kind of a cost savings if they're actually eating more vegetables and they're, probably getting a lot of benefits from that. So picnic and play was mentioned by one of you, and there's a question on whether or not that is your summer feeding program.
yes, yeah, I put it in the chat. It is our summer food service program. We have branded it that way to help reduce the stigma of it being a free meal, because our district is pretty low free and reduced. I think we're about 20%, maybe we're at 21% now. But definitely that's something that's kind of a barrier in our district is the stigma around free meals. And so that's why we rebranded. So it's more open and folks don't feel like if I'm going, I'm, there because I quote need it. So.
Mhm. Yeah, well, this has been a great conversation. I think that you guys have shared a lot of valuable information, and I think we've all learned a lot. I guess before I turn it over to Jody, anybody else have any last minute questions for our panelists before we move on to the rest of the meeting? Well, thank you very much, Becky, Caitlin, Julie. We really appreciate taking the time. Of course, you guys are welcome to stay and hang out with the rest of the food group here and learn a little bit about the statewide programs that are going on. I think the next thing up is some updates on other local food projects and programs going on. So feel free to stay as long as you have time. Otherwise, we really enjoy working with you guys, and definitely reach out to any of us if you need assistance with anything. So
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
okay, Jody, you're on.
Awesome. Yes, thank you everybody for joining us and taking time.